Hello, 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 and welcome in to lucky episode number 13 of the Bear Claw Media Podcast. I am Chris Bolin, joined as always by Ben Schleiger. How you doing today, buddy?
Oh, we're here. That rubber stamp just ran out of ink. Somebody didn't refill it from last year, I guess.
Yeah, not to step too much on top of what we're going to talk about, or what you're probably going to talk about here, but it's been a depressing fall for UNC, Ben. Like, football team 0-10, and I guess that's probably the worst of it, but unfortunately, like, not by that much, Um, and I think an NAU game just kind of summarized the entire season.
Yeah, having our pseudo rivalry game just not be competitive at all, that sucked. So, I mean, yeah, it's been a bummer of a fall. If you're a volleyball fan, it's pretty great because, they're third in the conference, so that's not too bad. But, soccer, they can even say that they got to win their last game of the season. They beat Eastern Washington 4-0. So, yeah, kudos soccer. Good on you gals for finishing 1-13-4. We might finish 0-11. I was gonna make a joke that we got 10 on the record. It just happens to be in losses, and that's not where we wanted to see it. But yeah, looking around the rest of UNC, we got a lot of different stuff going on. We're gonna follow the Big Sky and the playoffs to the completion because we're Bears and we finish what we do. Yeah, we're football fans anyway, so we're going to break it down. That's our meat and potatoes, and as basketball starts warming up, we'll transfer over to them a little bit further in the season. Both those teams are starting really well. The women have 2 wins on the season. They beat Colorado Christian 76-45 and Hastings College 86-56. The men also have 2 wins. They beat Colorado College 87-58 and Northern New Mexico 81-60. So looking pretty good for those two. Women's basketball travels to Vermilion to face South Dakota on Tuesday, and men's basketball is hosting a whiteout against CSU. So hopefully, horns down, we beat the Rammies. Volleyball, their next contest is going to be against Idaho State Thursday. They're kind of trying to play spoiler as their season winds down. They got 2 more games, Idaho State and Weber State. Right now, Weber State is trailing just behind Sac State, but Sac State, they already clinched a little bit of the title. So volleyball's had a pretty good season. I mean, we beat CSU, so, horns down. Always love that. That was early in the season. They also won the Colorado Classic, and another one of their, I didn't know this. Maybe you did, because Marcy does her, marketing stuff. But we had a Hampton Inn UNC Classic. Unfortunately, lost in the title game in that one, but we can still play upset to the Big Sky title as a whole. And if we get a lot of help, like Weber and Sac State lose everything they have left on their season, we could share in it. But most likely, we'll just have home field advantage in the Big Sky tourney coming up.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned it, but it's really the entire fall is kind of riding on volleyball. So thanks, ladies.
Yeah, thankfully for winter, we got a little bit of hope. Basketball's starting 2-0. Wrestling's they're 2-0. They beat Fort Hays and New Mexico Highlands, and this week they go to Arm Bar at the Armory in Albany, New York, against Buffalo and Presbyterian. And swim and dive are doing pretty well. They're 2-1 on the season. They beat New Mexico State and Idaho. Dropped a close one to Wyoming, but they have the Magnus Cup coming up at Cleveland State. So hopefully some of those winter sports will cheer our fancy a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have more options, at least. If nothing else, we cast a wide net.
And they all have wins, so they're doing better than fall by quite a bit.
Wait, do all of them have 2 wins, actually? Which is better than 2 of the 3?
Yep, wrestling 2-0, swim and dive 2-1, men's and women basketball 2-0. Yeah, everybody has at least 2.
In 7 years, we're gonna get like Sister Mary Elephants as our football non-conference. Just this feeling just going to linger in the athletic department.
Well, somebody's got to win.
Touche. All right, so let's take a break, a little shorter than or a little earlier than usual here, but we wanted to just kind of run through a little bit of the sports we haven't touched on, and a couple we're probably going to touch a lot more on once football ends. But when we get back, we'll jump back into the usual stuff and take a look around the Big Sky and then the greater FCS. All right, so there was one game that really stood out in the Big Sky this week. And honestly, it was one, if you had told me this result before the season started, I would have been like, yeah, that sounds about perfect. But then as the seasons unfolded, this just became less and less believable. But hey, here we are. Weber State upsetting top 5 Idaho, not top 5 anymore, but at the time, 31-29. Ben, please. I'm like kind of. I was high on Weber early in the year, and then I just completely lost all faith in them. And I think a lot of like my faith in Weber transferred onto Idaho. So now I'm just like weirdly split in this game. And it's like, I'm happy for Weber and I love to see the upset, but also like, what the fuck, Idaho? Like, where'd this come from?
Yeah, I think that's entirely fair. Also, we called it on the podcast. Like, Richie Munoz was going to be something not to scoff at, and turns out he did pretty darn good. This was not expected on my part either. I was like, wow, like I turned it. I really wanted to turn it over, but I was a good Bears fan. I finished the game out. I stayed loyal, but you know, you definitely caught me on my phone. I was checking. I was like, what is going on? And of course, like the announcers, they were a little bit bored, you could say, and they were like, yeah, just for reference, this is happening. It's like, damn, okay. So yeah, it shows that the Idaho potatoes are not immune. Anybody can get it, and Weber State showed, hey, a cat of many faces can eventually put the right mask on and get you.
Yeah, and it's a little late for Weber this year, obviously with one game left now, but this has to be promising for the future. Mickey Mento was probably getting scared to show his face in Ogden there for a while, so I just moving forward, this is a giant win for the program, you know.
And I mean, like going through it, it was just a fantastic effort. I mean, Winston Reed, 17 tackles on the game. Like, dude was absolutely flying around. Had 1.5 tackles for a loss, a forced fumble, a pass breakup. Like, dude was all over Giovanni McCoy. So, kind of goes to show that even though Hayden Hatton had 14 catches for 175 and a tutty, like it doesn't matter. Like if you can't use the rest of your receivers because everybody else was sub 40 yards, that it doesn't matter. You know, you're still going to score points, but I think we see the chink in the armor is that if Giovanni gets pressured and that there's a little bit of coverage sacks type deal, I mean, Idaho's going to have some problems on their hands. So they need to figure out that blocking scheme and how to pass the ball around more.
As big of a loser as Idaho is in this game, Idaho State may be just as big of a loser, having to face like a scorned Idaho team trying to get right before the playoffs in the first, like in a game earlier in the year that they probably were very much looking forward to, and I mean still are, but I don't think they're gonna catch Idaho off guard this next week. But speaking of Idaho State, Papa Hawkins won the Hawkins Bowl with Idaho State falling to UC Davis 21-14 in Pocatello. What do you think about this one, Ben?
Man, this one was a lot closer than I thought it would be. again, we kind of called it in the fact that Lan Larison was the difference maker with all three scores. Idaho State was scrappy though. Like they really gave it their all. If they made that 4th and 3 on that last drive, they still had a lot of work to do and not a lot of time left on the clock. But Idaho State, they were driving. Like I think they're only a couple steps behind Daddy Hawkins. Like, of course Dano, he's got to keep that family dynamic. He's got to keep Cody at an arm's length still. Be like, hey, hold on, boy, can't win quite yet. But he gave him a run for his money. If Lan Larison was not healthy for that game, I think it could have came down to who had the ball last.
Yeah. And Idaho State just light years ahead of where I think anybody expected them to be as a program coming into the season. I think they were just about consensus last place in the conference, and they've impressed just about every step of the way.
That might be one of the best like up and coming stories that we've had in the conference and in the FCS in a while.
Speaking of, don't think I can tie that one together. Sac State 41, Cal Poly 30. This is the most competitive Cal Poly's been in any game against any team not named UNC this conference season. I mean, I don't want to give Cal Poly too much credit or for an 11-point loss, but so I guess I'll take the credit away from Sac State and ask what happened.
Yeah, honestly, I think we must have gave him a little bit of confidence when we played them because man, this was a different team. Sac State, like they're kind of recuperating on offense a little bit, especially after their absolute shellacking in Missoula. So they're recovering offensively, but they're not recovering defensively. Like Cal Poly getting 30 on you, that's I don't know, that's inexcusable.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously, for a team that's, I think they're still top 10 in the country, or if not, they're damn close, and is going to be a playoff team. This one's just weird. It's looked like they faded down the stretch, I think the high point of their season still has to be that win over Stanford early in the year. But they haven't looked great, and at least since they played us. And I know they had a close win over Northern Arizona not too long before that, so they could be going through an extended cold streak at like the exact worst time.
Yeah, their sight of the season might have been a little bit short-sighted, just making sure they put Troy Taylor in his place, being like, "Hey, Deuce is my boy." But yeah, it's not look great. There's been some rumors on what's the health of Caden Bennett and all this, and at Sac State, like they're still a good team. They're still winning. Like a win's a win, and I have them at 11 in my poll. They're still a quality team. It's just their quality, like you said, it's definitely just been shaving it off. It's like a wood statue. You went a little too far. Now you got to change what the design is because you went past the point you're supposed to take off.
All right. So a team heading in the exact opposite direction as Sac State, Montana. You mentioned that drubbing they handed the Hornets. Was that last week?
Yeah.
They were right back at it again, 34-10 over Portland State. Just doing them, and I guess spoiler, Montana State absolutely pounded Eastern Washington, 57-14. So both of those two did their part to make the Brawl of the Wild as intriguing as it could be. And correct me if I'm wrong, it'll be for a straight up like conference title and probably either the 2 or 3 seed in the FCS playoffs. Am I crazy?
No, all that's correct. This is win the trophy, the title, and the automatic qualifier. So I mean, this is the holy trinity for the Montanas. In recent history, I can't think of a more important Montana versus Montana State, other than the fact of like, one gets into the playoffs, one doesn't. We've had that a few times, but this might be the most marquee of a Montana matchup that we've had. And boy, if Game Day visited last year, they need to come back, because this is going to be an absolute rock fight. Like, players are going to go after each other, fans are going to go after each other. This could be the most heated Brawl of the Wild, and that's not even trying to hype it up. It's just there's so much on the stakes. Who gets bragging rights? Who gets that leg up in the conference? This is an absolute marquee. There's no way we can't hide that this is game of the week. Like, this should be on everybody's TV set.
Yeah. Have you heard anything? I guess we can save it. We'll do a preview of this one later. But I guess a good, maybe not necessarily good preview into how you're feeling, but a good idea into kind of the difference of how we've looked at these power rankings the entire season. Is I have Montana State 1, you have Montana 1. Do you think Montana's better, or do you just think right now they've earned that number 1 spot? Because I think they're higher in basically every poll too.
I think these teams, and they're gonna hate it. They're gonna hate me for saying every single one of them. There's one way to piss off the whole state of Montana and say that they're equal. They're equal. Montana State is an absolute juggernaut offensively, especially in the run game, and Montana is just a never say die type team. They had that stupid loss to NAU, and the season started off. It looks like they almost lost to Ferris State. They almost had another loss early in the season. They didn't impress versus Butler. It's like, what are we doing? This is not Montana. This is like Portland State putting on maroon, trying to be like pretenders. Like, what are we doing here? And then all of a sudden, something kicked into gear after Bobby about had a physical altercation with that reporter. He switched quarterbacks, and Clifton McDowell has just been absolutely putting them in every spot they need to be. As for the power rankings, I think they've got so much momentum going into what could be the most important game in the Big Sky all season, and it's at home. I would give Montana the edge just because there's so many factors going in their favor, but I still believe a little bit more in Montana State just because they've had consistency. They don't have a weird loss on their schedule. All the losses are pretty self-explanatory for them. Also, like, it was more so Idaho lost the Little Brownstein game rather than Montana won it. But at the same time, like, both of them, after Idaho's weird flub this week, it's the Montana Conference, and we're just all living in it.
I hate to agree with you. I guess I understand, and I guess I'd say Montana's. I don't know. I don't really see an argument for thinking Montana's a better team. Like, I understand the 1 loss versus the 2 losses, and I don't. It feels like, I don't even know what I'm
Looking at
trying
it
to
from
say.
my perspective is I don't like putting Montana 1, but I feel like resume and momentum give them a slight edge over Montana State. Not going to spoil our picks, but like, I'm very conflicted on that pick for sure, because I really enjoy what Montana State does offensively. It's just their defensive backs. They're like stopping the electric plays or the plays that run a little bit too long and it turns into a broken play. That worries me because I feel like Montana's just they're a hair below, but they have a little bit better grasp on some of that.
That makes sense. I guess I think I'm struggling because even like my logic doesn't make sense to me, but in my head, in my heart, I feel like the losses versus Idaho and South Dakota State total less than one loss versus Northern Arizona is probably the best way I can like justify it in my head. It feels like those two losses added up are still not as bad as one Montana loss to NAU. But
Right. And I think that's a completely valid way to look at it and probably true. Just looking at it is from my point of view is this is a completely different Montana. Like with how many teams have gone through an identity crisis and come out for the better, them and Weber are definitely on the top side of that.
no, you nailed it because that was going to be exactly my butt. Was they just seem like they're not at all. I think if NAU played Montana now, it may still be 28-14, but Montana wouldn't be losing.
But hey,
Other
that
than that,
reporter that said, "Hey, when are you going to change his quarterback?" If Montana wins the Big Sky, he needs a damn ring. Get that boy a ring, like
you're
especially
right.
for all the hell Bobby puts him through.
Yeah, is that? I guess that I was gonna say that Northern Arizona beat reporter, but that was probably a Montana beat reporter that just was with the team. If they were doing like a post game of that like magnitude. But you're right. He could probably flaunt that Big Sky championship ring too.
Right? Get him on the assistant coaching staff right now.
Get him a Connor Stallions esque role.
Oof.
The only other really, the season is solidified how much I know, how confident I am that I just don't know the 5 through 10 range. Again, that was kind of my takeaway when I was filling this out. Any given week, you could put like 5 through 10 in like a blender and just spit them out in a random order, and I don't think I would be that upset. If you told me Weber State was the fifth best team in the conference, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I could see that. But if you told me they were still like 9th or 10th because of what happened early in the year, I'd be like, yeah, I could see that. Same with Idaho State, NAU, Portland State, all of them. I can't get a read on them, and I think that's the best I'm going to do. Is they're between the 20th and 60th best teams in the country.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And another interesting observation on here is while while I mess it up by being, coffee creamer each week and being liquid, we about made the same cup of Joe this week. I mean,
We
3 through
did.
12 are damn near the same. So, I mean, just that slight Montana debate, and again, that's a little bit. I include too many variables potentially. We pretty much
And
have the
I
same
also could
ideas here,
include not
just for
enough.
different reasons.
Yeah, I think for how different we go about these, we actually have had a lot of the same. Like, we come to the same conclusions a lot. But I think those conclusions are different every week. And, like, we've been similar, but I don't think there's been a lot of consistency in who we have in each particular spot.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the middle just happened to kind of align this week. It's yeah, like you were talking about Weber. I mean, you could put him 20, you could put him 60. It's about the same. Like I think this middle is just so we've seen so many things from it. We've seen NAU beat Montana. We've seen Eastern Washington seem like they're back and just reloaded just fine. We've seen UC Davis be uh, an absolute train wreck, and then they get their 1-star player back, and they're all of a sudden like world beaters and somehow back in the race and getting votes and whatnot. It's wild. The middle gives us headaches, and the top gives us heartaches.
All right, so let's take a look forward. Uh, we kind of already spoiled who the game of the week was, but I don't think anybody really even had any questions coming in. Ben, I hate to break it to you, I further pulled away from you this week. I went 5-1 versus your 4-2 with our game of the week. I had NDSU in that one. So, but we're gonna ramp it off when the playoffs get here. Give you a chance to earn that taco party. But for now, Idaho versus Idaho State. Uh, it's at the Kibbe Dome. Idaho coming off of a bad loss. Um, I don't think there's any real other way to put it. I would be absolutely shocked if Idaho State won this game. That being said, I was pretty shocked when Weber State won last week, so what the hell do I know?
Well, I think you know a lot being 27-10 on the season. I would love to pick Baby Hawkins, and if they won last week, I might be inclined to. But, Idaho, you were supposed to have your get back game against Weber. What happened? Had a little bit of that cow stink from Greeley still left on you. But in good conscience, I can't choose against Idaho in the Kibbe Dome. I'm going to stick with the Vandals.
Yeah, I think this could have been a trap game. Like, could have been a letdown game if they didn't just have their letdown game. So I feel like there's no way it happens 2 weeks in a row. I still think Idaho's too good for that. But this one is looking a little more interesting this week than it did last week. Sac State at UC Davis. Sac State's, I guess, despite not really having any bad losses, Sac State seems to be trending downward, at least in my head. They haven't been playing as well as they were early in the year. And it looks like UC Davis is finally getting a little bit healthier. Like you said, Larison back, kind of doing what he does, Who do you got in this one, Ben? I'll cop out and let you guess first, or let you pick first.
Well, we know Larison is good for 21 points, so we can already dial that up. Sac State, they worry me. I mean, like you were pointing out, they've done good, they've done bad. It's like a Katy Perry song, but you're stuck on the chorus, and you're just like, okay, can we keep going? Nope, we're stuck. Gosh, I would love to pick Dan Hawkins, but I'm going to pick Sac State and just hope it's chalk.
Dude, I feel the strain in your voice when you make that pick, because I feel this one, it feels like a perfect upset spot, like a perfect spot to want to pick UC Davis, which I love, but then it also just worries the hell out of me for that reason,
There's just so many motivations for UC Davis to do well in it. They have this is their one shot into the playoffs, is to knock off Sac State, get to 7 wins, have a featured win at the end of the season. But then again, that's Sac State's downfall. Oh man, they're going to basically level themselves off at the back of the playoff bracket if Davis wins.
Sorry, I was trying to frantically Google if there was a name for this game, because I think they're only an hour and a half, 2 hours away from each other.
Oh, that's right, because Cal Poly UC Davis is Golden Horseshoe, so I think this one's I-95 or something.
Yeah, that may have been what I was thinking. The UC Davis website does not have it listed as anything, so leave a comment if you know the name of that one.
I was gonna say it's not the Causeway Classic, is it? I get all those California ones mixed up. Sac State, UC Davis, yeah, Causeway Classic. There we go.
Nailed it. That's I'm surprised I thought I couldn't remember that one, because I definitely know that name, and that's one of the better names for a rivalry game. Causeway Classic.
Fun fact, they've met 69 times total. Nice. And UC Davis is 46-23 in it.
Just so it's on the record, in case I did not state it directly, I'll go with the Aggies, because why not? Let's go, Papa Hawkins. Don't let me down, buddy. Here's a matchup of two of those 5 through 10 teams. So your guess is as good as mine, Ben. Northern Arizona at Eastern Washington.
Man, I would flip a coin, but I like Eastern better for no reason other than they're at home. I like them better. I want to choose them. Angel Flores looked pretty decent against us. Eastern looked abysmal against, I don't know. Dude, there's so many reasons for and against.
I'll go first while you think on this one, so you can blindly fade me if you want.
I was like, I thought I knew where I was, and then like you threw me on the grill, and I was like, I don't know what temperature I'm going for.
I'm gonna go with. Yeah, I'm right with you, man. And my heart is telling me to pick Eastern Washington. And for that reason, I'm going to go with Northern Arizona because it hasn't made sense up till this point. Why would it now?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think NAU has the momentum. I think Angel Flores is better. I know you just typed it out, but I'm gonna put Eastern. Just be like, Happy Senior Day, maybe, because I'm also hoping Happy Senior Day for us. Thankful we're not picking that one because I don't know that we would pick us. But hopefully the football gods have some mercy on us.
The football, don't think I can pull that transition together either, Dan. Weber State at Cal Poly. Maybe 3 weeks ago, you could have convinced me to hear an argument for Cal Poly. Not anymore. Weber State all day. I don't want to hear anything other from you either,
Ben. I won't try to fight this one. Weber State all the way. We've been riding high on Ricky Munoz. Let's ride it into the sunset on the season and get better for playoffs next year, boys.
All right, so we've I guess this will be our third time talking about this game already on this podcast. Brawl of the Wild, Montana State at Montana. Both there'll be 2 top 5 teams for sure. Could be even higher than that. It's been 2 seasons for Montana, like we talked about, and they're looking as good as anybody in their second season. Montana State been top of the country all year. 2 losses, both to top 10 teams with South Dakota State and Idaho State, and Idaho. Excuse me. Ben, you go first. I know who I'm going to pick.
I know who I'm picking, and it makes me fucking sick.
Okay, so we're not going to agree on this one. If I had to guess, then
yeah, probably not. It's the Brawl of the Wild. It's the title game. It's the automatic qualifier. Bobby Houck has gotten his all-time Big Sky wins record. It's the Holy Trinity, and there's nothing holy about Missoula. So I think the Devil's going to come out with a win. I think Bobby Houck gets some revenge for losing on game day, and Montana sails into the playoffs where they do whatever they do.
Dude, I actually feel like fairly strongly for Montana State, but I don't want to step on that. I just want to I want that to be the closing of this segment.
I want to pick Montana State personally, but I feel like there's some voodoo up in Montana. They sold their souls to the devil, and Clifton McDowell must have been like the head priestess or something of that ceremony, because they are a brand new team and they look much more fierce than they did. I thought this was going to be a cakewalk for Montana State. It still could be, but I think it's going to be a bloody brawl.
Yeah. So I think it was a few weeks ago I said that Idaho versus Montana State would be kind of the game of the Big Sky slate, and I was wrong. I was way wrong on that one. But I still think this. You're right. There is like a voodoo element that worries me about Montana and what's been happening. But I'm gonna listen to my brain on this one, and my brain tells me that Montana State's been the better team all year. And I still think Montana State's closer to South Dakota State than any other team is to Montana State, if that made any sense. I think there's a 1A, 1B, and then the rest of the field starts at Furman or Montana or whoever you want to call that third team. I may sound very stupid after this week, but I'm feeling good about the Bobcats.
And the worst part is I fully agree with everything there. It's just something about that voodoo got me buying the witch doctor's magic. Bobby Houck, he was on the hot seat, and now all of a sudden he's just the whole city of Missoula is hot. You could probably call it its own little state too, because that's the way they act. But yeah, it's hot. This would be the ultimate letdown if they let this game go, and then he would be right back on the hot seat. But yeah,
Yeah,
I want Montana State to win, but Montana, if they lose this would be worse than losing a national championship.
Yeah, watch after all this Bobby Houck resurgence. They're gonna lose to Montana State, have a dud in the first round, and lose in the playoffs, and we'll be exactly where we were 6 weeks ago with the is Bobby Houck cooked? Is Montana needs a new face talk? How fickle it can be.
I think that's 100% realistic as well. So I'm just going to be super glad to have a juicy game to watch.
Exactly. Well, let's take another quick break there, and when we come back, we'll wrap it up with some bigger picture FCS stuff and a little look ahead. Well, there was one play that really is stuck in my head from this last week from yesterday. A little inside baseball. It's 4:30 here on Sunday afternoon, evening, whatever you want to call it. But that play was the Central Arkansas Hail Mary. The minute I opened my phone last night, because I didn't look much at it for about 5 hours in the evening, that was the first 6 posts that I saw on Twitter. We're all just different takes, or it was the same take, but everybody had it on that Central Arkansas Hail Mary. I assume you saw that one, Ben?
I did not, so I'm gonna have to catch up on that one. Central Arkansas, they've been floating right between could be ranked, nah. They have good things going for them, but they just don't do it consistently.
I feel like I should we should put a little scoreboard up in the middle and give me a point, because this may be the first FCS highlight that I've seen that you had no idea about in this podcast existence.
Well, I was gonna say we're gonna have to go back and make sure you got me a point for what was it? The 17.5. Montana State definitely went past that on Eastern. 24. That was sad.
Ben is 20. You are now down by 9 points. You are 100% right. I missed that.
You're good. It's just it should have been more 33 at that point.
Yeah, literally. Wait, I did say I'd give you a point if that's where the line was near, I think. But
we'll throw the red flag and review it and get back to whether it's a point or not.
You know, the absolute walloping that Montana State gave Eastern Washington, you earned your point no matter what, buddy. Don't worry.
Hey, I'm good with pizza or tacos. Pizza don't hurt my feelings.
All right. Has this stalling gave you enough time to hunt down that Central Arkansas clip?
Still looking for it. I will find it and I will react to it.
Okay. While you're looking for that, what was your reaction to NC Central just shit on by Howard last week?
They got drubbed. Yesterday. There was nothing okay about that. NC Central's been getting a lot of love, even some potential top 10 love. Oh wow, yeah, okay, I did see this one. I forgot it was UCA because I was like, wait a minute, I recognize that awful gray and purple field. Go UCA. I almost put them in my poll. Admittedly, they were 28th for me, so they came close. They've been close all season. I had them early on. It's just they needed more of these.
All right, now that we got you up to speed on that one, South Dakota 14, North Dakota 10. The center of the Missouri Valley it feels pretty similar to the center of the Big Sky. It's just like a little better class of teams that are just kind of beating the shit out of each other every week. I would say uh, North Dakota State and Southern Illinois also kind of fall into that range. And I mean, Youngstown may have been shamed out of it after that defeat this week. But does anything really in any of those three games stand out to you, Ben?
Yeah, the Missouri Valley and the CAA have been giving me fits in the poll all year long, and I wish they would just have some more decisive wins. Um, kind of kind of irritating that they're just like, they're fluttering around. I'll give you a second to look at my top 25 while I drub on about how the Missouri Valley can absolutely just go cannibalize yourself. Just do it. Do it for the betterment of the FCS. 16 through 20 is just an absolute smattering of teams that give me fits. Southern Illinois, they've had such good contests, and then they shit the bed. And then North Dakota, they've been like really good. They were very close against South Dakota, couldn't cut it. They got embarrassed by Northern Iowa. What the hell? Northern Iowa, you got your shit rocked by Missouri State. Youngstown State, very high on you. You came out late in goose egg, and then your quarterback came up to the press conference stand and just talked shit about how South Dakota State's not that good of a team, and blah blah blah. It's like, dude, you goose egged. You don't get to. This is not no. Like, just because you're on like regional like TV, you don't get to like just trash the other team after you got your butt whooped.
Yeah, that clip of him at the press conference was the exact same, but also the exact opposite of that Central Arkansas clip, where it was the only thing that I saw from that game. Like, I don't think I saw a single like play from that South Dakota or from that South Dakota State Youngstown State game. But that quarterback talking about how it was just a bunch of guys who've been playing football forever. It was just plastered over my Twitter feed.
Yeah, it's like I kind of like almost had a little bit of a behavior smacking on him and dropped him down another spot below Northern Iowa just because I was like, dude, don't give me that. If that's one of your leaders, like, I know not everybody always speaks for everybody on the team, but like, come on now, like, don't do that.
All right, so taking a quick look at your top 25, Ben, there's one glaring problem that I have.
Yeah.
Can you guess?
Is it the tie at 25 because
Yes,
neither of them matter?
Two number 25s, Ben. Last time I checked, it went 24, 25, 26. So I'm just confused.
Hey, I put this out there as just like an absolute, like, take it how you want it. If you want to put Tullerton 25, 20, and Lafayette at 26, go for it. But, if the coaches poll can do such a terrible job, screw it. I'm going to do what I want in my poll too, because, like, I'm actually looking at the resumes. Those interns, they're just doing it on their coffee break. They're cleaning the coffee machine, letting it soak, and they're like, oh God, I got to get this out. I got to send this to Craig Haley or I'm going to get my butt whooped. I don't want to be on taking staples out of the wrong packets again duty. Give me a break. Like, Tarleton, Lafayette, I like both of them. I think they both deserve recognition. Are they going to go anywhere or do anything in the playoffs? No. Do they deserve recognition that Lafayette's having a good year for once in their life and Tarleton is having a really good move up to the FCS and this year's like going really well for them? Yeah. I think both of them deserve some recognition of like, hey, you boys are doing good. Keep doing good. And these jokers from the Missouri Valley, once they cannibalize themselves out, hey, you can take a high 20 spot.
You know what, Ben? I respect it strictly for the fact of I think I'm very on the record saying 15 through 30 or the sort. It just doesn't matter. Not that it doesn't matter, but it's just such a toss up. You know what? Kudos. It's a pick 'em at 25th, and I'm on board.
Yeah, it's like dyeing a whole bunch of different leaves of lettuce, different colors, and putting them in a salad spinner take the top off, close your eyes, and pull one out, you're going to get a different color every time. So that's kind of like 15 through 30 on most people's polls, especially the coaches.
The other two back-to-back that kind of stick out, Villanova 9, Albany 10. Feels a little bit high. Not that I'm like the resident expert here, but what led to that pairing right there?
Both of those, I like the resumes. And honestly, like after about Chattanooga, yeah, I mean even then, I think 1 through 7 are pretty much your contenders. And everything, I think if you switch 6 and 7, I actually have the same top 7 as Sam Herder. It's just Delaware and Idaho are switched on his, I believe. But yeah, I think 1 through 7 are definitely the contenders. After that, it's just about resume, momentum, quality of wins. Going back and looking at it, I just I had put NDSU somewhere. I put them 13th. Like FAMU, obviously they're going to be trying to go to the Celebration Bowl. Sac State, we've kind of talked about how we don't believe in them too much. If Sac State played those, would they win? Man, don't make me choose that. It's just I still like the resume that Albany's putting out, and I still like Villanova quite a bit. Albany beat Villanova, but they have more losses. It's just when you look at the sum total of it, they lost to Marshall, they lost to Hawaii. Like I don't count those against them. The game they lost against New Hampshire by 7 points, I do count that against you. That shouldn't have happened. But all in all, I mean, like they took down William and Mary 2 weeks ago. Everybody's trying to rank William and Mary. No, they shouldn't be ranked. They don't deserve it. They deserved it maybe in the preseason in the first couple weeks, but after that, no. Get off my boat. Rhode Island, they've been scrappy. Definitely like one of those teams that's just kind of hovering around. If they actually played everybody, you'd probably see them like dip down quite a bit more. But all in all, Albany has a good resume. Like I like them. I like what they're doing to their conference opponents. Villanova, they lost to UCF and Albany, and that's it as far as I know.
Yeah, that's
looking on it. Yeah, so I mean, like UCF, I don't hold that against them. Albany, good scrappy team. They bested them by 21 points. I think that's significant. I think you have to consider that quite a bit. They also did take care of business against New Hampshire, which was kind of the thorn in the side for Albany. So Villanova and Delaware square off. So that should really offset whether Delaware deserves to be in that top 7. If not, I mean, we're going to see Delaware's kind of a pretender. Maybe Villanova's the real conference power there. So things are going to get figured out next week for those. And then Albany, Monmouth, I'm pretty sure Albany is going to walk away just fine from that one.
Yeah, that Villanova Delaware, I think that'll be like a great test of. I mean, it's pretty late in the season, but that'll show whether or not Villanova is like legit. They're obviously like a really good team and deserve to be a top 20. They've been a top 25 team all year. But we'll see there whether or not they should be a top 10 team that maybe we need to look at look at another time heading into the playoffs.
I mean, just like Montana State, we're getting kind of a pseudo playoff ahead of time. So it's just it's a cherry on the top for all the fans.
Yeah. And I understand the ranking those two higher than like an NDSU, because it's like, do you value a loss versus South Dakota State more than a win versus Towson? And it's like, it's just so, it's like, what do you do with it? So I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that at all.
Well, and if one really beats the other by quite a bit, they won't stay near each other. They'll drop down just like everybody else, because anybody who thinks that they can just hang around in the polls, unless you have a great resume, you're going to get a taste, and you're going to get a taste of the bottom.
So trying to kind of pivot this looking forward, we touched on that Nova Delaware game. Really not a ton else going on this week outside Brawl of the Wild. NDSU plays Northern Iowa. I guess that it's still an intriguing game. Would have been a little more intriguing last week. Northern Iowa is another one of those kind of middle Missouri Valley teams that are just taking their lumps every third week because they play somebody really good. um, Central Arkansas, who will I'd say they'll probably be ranked once this next poll comes out because they were, I think, 26 or 27 and picked up the win and in exciting fashion. They have Austin Peay, so that'll be another good one. And then this last one has no real significance on anything, but anytime Harvard and Yale play, it feels worth mentioning. The Crimson having a little bit of a rough patch, but still a solid team. We'll see if they can kind of close out their season, take care of business against their rivals. Any of those stand out to you, Ben?
I mean, how can you hate Harvard Yale? That's like the FCS version of Army Navy. You know, it's not always a good record, but this year it's actually pretty good. It's 1-2 in the Ivies, and I thought about ranking Yale. They ended up kind of in that high 20 to low 30 range, so it's a decent team, and that should be a good game there for sure. So they'll have a good one on their hands. Austin Peay,
Also,
that's going to be.
Harvard lost one game, and I called that a rough patch. I don't know what I was thinking. Continue, sorry.
Well, it's a rough patch for non-playoff participants. You know, if they were a playoff participant, I mean, they'd be right around that 9 to 13 range. So, I mean, yeah, if they were participating, it'd be a good deal for them. You know, and Austin Peay, they're going to have to perform well this week to make sure they can participate in the playoffs. I think Central Arkansas showed that they're scrappy and they won't quit, but on the road, I don't know if I believe it. Another game I don't believe in is the second one you mentioned is North Dakota State and Northern Iowa. I'm so happy this is happening because both these teams are just garbage. I hope that Northern Iowa beats NDSU so they can both be 7-4 and someone gets left out. If the Bison win, which they probably will, even though it's on the road, they'll be 8-3. You know, their 3 losses are 3 ranked losses, or at least ranked at the time. So, yeah, it's going to be a quality matchup. But, you know, sue me if I don't want to see some tears in the Missouri Valley.
All right. Well, I think we just about covered it. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on that I didn't bring us to, Ben?
No, I think you hit it pretty well. Just kind of like those CAA clusters and those Missouri Valley clusters, like a lot of those will be figured out this week, and we'll get a true sense of, you know, everything's 2020 when the season's over, but everybody's season will be over except for 2 HBCU games, which don't affect the playoffs. So we'll get to see kind of, you know, where everything stands, where the dust settles, and I hope it really settles out some of those clusters where we can be like, okay, at least this part of the cluster is the upper part, and this part, like, your fringe, you might be one of the first 4 out, you might be one of the last 4 in. We'll see what happens for them.
All right. Well, thank you for listening as always. And if you like what we do, please leave a comment. If you don't, leave a message in Ben's inbox. I have been Chris Bolin, joined by Ben Schleiger. Have a good one.